Assassini!
Delinquenti sono! Delinquenti sono! Sono dei delinquenti! A muoversi in questo tempo! Delinquenti!
Sicily have been struck by a powerful and sudden storm, leaving widespread damage, flooded streets and stranded residents in its wake. Torrential rain, strong winds exceeded 100 km/h and have plummeted cities from Palermo to Catania, turning roads into rivers and causing chaos in towns across the island. Residents reported being cut off guard by the intensity of the storm. "I never seen rain come down like this in my life," say Maria Russo, a Palermo resident. "With the wind ripped off our shoulders and the streets filled with water within minutes." Emergency services were inundated with vehicles, responded to fallen trees, blocked roads and damaged vehicles. Several small rivers in Catania and Messina overflowed, forcing evacuation in low-lying neighborhoods. Schools and public offices were closed, and local airports experienced flight cancellation due to heavy rainfall and poor visibility. Historic cities were also affected. In Palermo, parts of the old city separate minor flooded, while the Calendar and Torrential Messina saw water slipping into Contiat. Tourist areas included Taormina were temporarily evacuated. In the boats of the harbor were secured against the winds and waves. Meteorologists explained that the storm was flooded by the Mediterranean low-pressure system, cooling with a humid warm air from Africa. This combination produced extremely violent storm in short time, said Dr. Antonio Latour, a weather expert in Sicily. Experts alike the becoming more frequent due to climate change. Agriculture losses are expected to be significant, with the olive groves, vineyard and citrus orange damaged by the hail flooding. Local farmers have already called for the emergency relief and the offsite and economic impact. Authority urged residents to remain indoors, avoid flooded roads and follow emergency advisory. Mayor Lever Orlando stressed by the importance of immediate cleanup efforts of forced to need the better flood prevention infrastructure across Italy. As the storm subsided, Sicilian surveyed for the damage, cleared debris and braced for the next birth and unpredictable weather, a stark reminder of the island's vulnerability to extreme Mediterranean storms. A sudden and violent storm hit Sicily, leaving flooded streets and damaged houses, and residents trying to save themselves. Torrential rain, strong winds and large hailstorms swept across the island, hitting Palermo, Catania and Messina particularly hard. "It was terrible," said Gianni Canti and residents of Palermo. "The hail broke out windows and the water poured into the streets like a river. I have never seen anything like it." Emergency service worked for the full capacity, responded to fallen trees, blocked roads and stranded cars. Several rivers, including smaller turbulence in Catania, they burst their banks, forced dozens of families to evacuate. The streets to coastal towns were impossible, and local airports responded to numerous delays and cancellation. Historical cities were also affected. In Palermo, flooded inundated part of the cathedral and Quattro Canti Securio, while tourist centers such as Torrential had to carry out emergency evacuation. Boats were washed away from their mooring, and the local market were forced to close. Meteorologists explained the storm as a collision between the Mediterranean low-pressure system and warm humid air from Africa. This great short but extremely intense storm Agriculture area suffered significant damage. Olive groves, vineyard and citrus orange by damage by the hail, threatening both local economy and exports. Authority called for emergency aid to affected farmers and businesses. The Italian capital Rome has been stained after a sudden and violent hailstorm swept through the city, pelting streets, monuments and neighborhoods with the eyes at the sky of Gauss ball. The storm struck with a little warning, turning summer strikes into a dramatic clash of thunder and lightning before unleashing torrents. The rain mixed with the hail. Within minutes rolled, turned it wild, resembling winter snow rather than a September evening. I felt like the sky was exploding, said Marco Bianchi, a taxi driver whose car window was shattering. I lived here all life and never seen Rome like this. Dozens of people were threatened to injure, many from flying glass and fallen debris. Hospital reported cases to shock and debris and brushes, where several children were taken with a head injury caused by the hailstorm. Emergency service received across the city responded to collapsing shops, canopies, damaged vehicles and flooded underpasses. Tours by cut-off guard in a historic era with doors around the shelter inside the Colosseum and St. Peter Basilica and hailstorm battered courtyard and pieces. Social media quickly filmed with the several images of the Trevi fountain surrounded by the sky, with the local described it into a scene from another world. Transport was now into disarray. Rome's metro facing delay after water seeped into tunnels, with the traffic jam scattered into kilometers and the driver abandoned damaged car. Agriculture outside the city was also hit. The vineyard in Lazio suffered severe damage and the entire crew destroyed just a week before harvest, raising fears of million losers to the local farmers. Meteorologists explained the storm was fueling the unusually warm Mediterranean air classes the colder north front, creating the perfect conditions to the cave formations. Experts warning that climate change is making such extreme events more frequent even in the region accustomed to them.
Ahora mismo en Garachico.
A powerful storm hit Sicily, plunging part of the Italian island into chaos as torrential rain, strong winds and flash floods swept through the gray skies, including Palermo, Catania and Messina. According to Italy's Civil Protection Department, the storm dumped more than 120 mm of rain in just a few hours, nearly a month's worth, flooding streets, collapsing roads and prompted dozens of evacuations. Emergency service responded more than 300 calls using helicopters to board the rescue trapped residents. In Palermo, dramatic footage showed cars flooding like toys and shops in the historic center of flooding. Giulia Romana, a 42-year-old local resident, said, "It was terrible. The water rushed into our house in a matter of minutes. The barrier had time to move the upper floor. Schools were closing in affected regions, and hundreds of people were left without power due to power outage." Authority also reported temporarily closed to Catania airport. The rail runway were flooded, caused delays and cancellations. Meteorologists explained the extreme weather conditions as a mitigant to rare Mediterranean hurricane formed by high sea temperature and unstable air masses. In the heart of the Mediterranean, the Italian island of Sicily has long been seasonally with a sun of the tempting coastline and seductive blend of the history and culture. However, this idyllic landscape is recently has been transformed into a dramatic scene of nature fury. A formidable storm marked by resilient rain and the fierce winds and lashed Sicily, unveiling the vulnerable of even the most picturesque square of the region with the firms of weather. The storm onslaught was achieved with the meteorologists barely able to predict and intensify before the unleashed food and made the apeon of fury. Winning hours, streets and town crises across the Sicily were inundated, transformed urban center into unwelcoming, water-loaded mazes. The rain, increasing unforgiving, pointed the green portrait of the region undecided by the elements. In Palermo, the Sicilian capital, scenes in the chaos unfolded. Ascent streets and usually burst with the life and aroma of Sicily, crash while deserted save for accessional vehicles struggling against the rising water. The iconic Torrential Messina, a testament of Sicily agriculture, dangerous stood with the silence within to unflooding calamity. Sicily Civil Protection Chief Maria Russo warning on the increasingly unstable Mediterranean climate economy, warning from climatologists who said that the sea surface temperature now about 27 Celsius are contributed to the formation of more tropical cyclones now at the Mediterranean. Local measures including Roberto Lagola of Palermo and Etnico Tragico of Catania have requested emergency funds of support from the national government. Cleanup efforts are ongoing with more than 1,400 civil protection volunteers and firefighters involved in the cleanup debris and drainage flooded areas. Environmental groups such as Ligibird and Colson Italy in the speed up infrastructure urged, especially in the southern cities prone on flooding. Experts from the University of the Palermo note that 16% of region drainage system and outdated or inundated from the today extreme weather conditions. As Sicily begin in a powerful recovery, the message is clear. Climate disasters are no longer a distant possibility, they are not happening now with the devastating consequences. After the storm, Sicily emergency service remained overwhelmed. Over 315 emergency calls were recorded in 24 hours, and fire crews were sent to Cerrate, Ragusa, and Argiriento to clear fallen trees, restore power lines, and evacuate flooded buildings. Farmers in rural area report catastrophic losses. Vineyard, olive grapes, and Cretel, and citrus orange, where other vital civil economy were flooded. This storm destroyed a 12-year work. St. Antonio Rizal, the farmer near Trapani, were in despair. The island's fragile infrastructure suffered serious damage in the southern parts of the island. Bridges in the rural roads collapsing, cutting off Smile Mountains town. In Enna, several landslides blocked all access roads, forcing helicopters to deliver supplies. Rescue teams, including the military, have been deployed to assist with the worst-hit areas. Civil defendants until have set up temporary shelters in schools and community centers of displaced families, many of whom have lost everything. Environmental experts warn that such intense storms are becoming more frequent due to climate change. This is not the first time Sicily was faced with the wrath of nature, but experts are calling this storm one of the most destructive weather events in decades. The last such disaster occurred in 2029, where deadly floods and landslides killed 37 people in Messina, but this time the combination of heavy rainfall, wind and widespread infrastructure damage made the consequences even more serious. According to preliminary government report, more than 1,200 homes were damaged, 14 roads remain closed and 7 bridges have structure damage. Insurance companies are already inundated with the claims of many families without insurance to continue on compensation from the state. This storm was particularly dangerous because it suddens. Meteorologists issue a yellow alert just hours before the first downpour. By that time, it was too late many communities to prepare. Critics are now to call into fast weather warning system to better preparedness of natural disaster, especially in the southern region, which is often overlooking. Satellite images show in a grim picture. Storm winds with the cyclone rotation around the lowland between Basilicata and Campania when it gets up to 100 km/h in the lower Torrential Sea. Sicilian, Ionian and Adriatic straits are the result of strong winds surge along the open coast. The situation is less critical in the West Mons basins and the upper Torrential Sea, but weather is raging in Lazio, but not only there. Strong storms surge throughout the Italy and snow at the well low altitude. The sea is stormy on the coast of Ponza is the pair connecting of the island Formia and the marker of the waves. The ship brought to the Formia left on the hour late today. By evening it was still and the road can left Ponza at 3:13 p.m. It is expected to arrive Formia around 8:45 p.m. Rome, Italy was hit by unprecedented hailstorm, surprised and catching locals by tourists of Guad. The storm brought heavy rain, lightning and hailstorm the size of a golf ball, caused damage of cars, homes and businesses. Witness reported hearing long bands of the hailstorm stuck roofs and windows. Many took to social media share photos and video of severe storm, with some experienced disbelief of such weather could occur in a normally sunny sea. The Italian island of Ischia near Naples have been devastated by powerful flood and landslides triggered by relentless rainfall. Torrents of water swept through the town, tearing apart flood, burying homes, moat, and leaving residents in shock at the state of destruction. In the town of Casamesola, Termi, one of the hardest hit era, houses were engulfed by the cascading mud and debris. It was like avalanches of water and the earth cascading down, said Rosa Espana, a resident who narrowly escaped with her family. In seconds, everything were on gas down. Authorities confirmed multiple deaths, with the several people still missing as such, and the rescue operations continue. Dozens of residents were injured, while hundreds and evacuation from the unsteppable buildings. Schools, shops, and businesses remain closed as emergency crews clear blocked streets. Emergencies, snow cars overturned, and a half buried with the rescue workers and volunteers did through their layers of mud with their hands to reach service. Power outage and damaged water supplies have left many communities isolated. The island's still terrain combined with the days of heavy rain triggered a series of landslides that shut down mountains into the coastal town. Experts noted that devastation and uncontrolled construction have worsened island's vulnerability to such disaster. Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni experienced condolences to victim families and pledged immediate aid, calling the disaster a national tragedy. Italian Civil Protection Agency has deployed helicopters, driver and special units to assist rescue efforts, with the local authority declared a state of emergency. The flood has also remained wider concern. Each popular tourist destination known for the hot spring and bridge is now facing questions about building safety and climate resilience. Rome was hit by a sudden and violent hailstorm, which turned in the historic streets and Italian capital into the city rivers and caused significant disruption to normal life in the city. The storm, which hit late in the evening, blanketed the city with a hailstorm the size of walnuts, breaking windows, damaged cars, and injured dozens of residents and tourists. Within minutes, cobbled streets and famous squares were covered with a white blanket, created scenes more reminiscent of winter and autumn. Severe quickly overlapped caused flash flood that swept through the central area, including Torrential and Prati. Cars were stuck in ice-city water and abysses, and trams stopped while emergency service dealt with debris. Rome Florence Airport reported delays after runway were temporarily covered in hail and lightning forces ground staff and suspended operations. Train service ended from Termini station was also severely disrupted, leaving hundreds of passengers stranded overnight. Hospitals treated dozens of people and injured from the fallen branches, slapping on the sky streets and broken glass. It was terrible, said Lucia Bianchi, a local resident. The hailstones were so long and sounded like bullets hitting the window. Video posted online showed streams of hail falling down the Spanish states and a fountain overflowing throughout the city. The storms also left a mark on agriculture, vineyard and olive groves around the Lazio suffered significant damage, with the farmers reported crops losing just weeks before harvest. For us, it is a disaster, said Maria Russo, a farmer near Frascati. Months of work were destroyed in half an hour. Meteorologists said the storm was caused a collision between most Mediterranean air and a cold front moving south, conditions increasingly associated with a climate instability. Experts warning that the Rome, like many southern Europe cities, is becoming increasingly vulnerable to sudden extreme weather events. Hospitals reported an increase in administration, while several schools closed after the roofs suffered structure damage. Rome's already overabundant infrastructure succumbed to onslaught. Metro Line A was temporarily suspended due to flooding, and thousands of homes were left without power. Insurers grabbed estimated the damage could reach tens of millions of euros, which vehicles a safe ground of outdoors have been the most affected. Farmers in Lazio also suffered losses. Vegetables field and vineyard were hit by the phone. Agriculture Association described the event of the catastrophic blow and the higher the harvest season. Meteorologists linking the storm and wind of the most air and collided with the cold front conditions intensified by the expectation warm weather of the Mediterranean. This is a classic case of extreme weather amplified by climate change. Hospitals reported an increase in administration, while several schools closed after the roofs suffered structure damage. Rome's already overabundant infrastructure succumbed to onslaught. Metro Line A was temporarily suspended due to flooding, and thousands of homes were left without power. Insurers grabbed estimated the damage could reach tens of millions of euros, which vehicles a safe ground of outdoors have been the most affected. Farmers in Lazio also suffered losses. Vegetables field and vineyard were hit by the phone. Agriculture Association described the event of the catastrophic blow and the higher the harvest season. Meteorologists linking the storm and wind of the most air and collided with the cold front conditions intensified by the expectation warm weather of the Mediterranean. This is a classic case of extreme weather amplified by climate change. Hospitals reported on a sharp increase in important of the bureaus and the minor factories. Businesses, especially cafes and open-air markets, suffered significant losses of the sudden food destroyed supplies to outdoor sitting areas. Farmers to the outskirts of the city also serious losses, and a vineyard and olive groves were destroyed by the storm. Video quickly spread on social media showed hailstorm bouncing off incident capable of the floating landmarks such as the Colosseum, shocking viewers around the world. Tourists caught on the storm described the experiences as apocalyptic. Climate experts warned that such extreme weather events are becoming more frequent in Italy, pointing out the former warmer seas contributed the strong storm. As a cleanup efforts continue, Rome is telling the financial damage and reflection to the capital vulnerability to sudden climate shock. Raising the alarm over significant damage to crops, vineyard and olive groves, kept the region economy, where damaged raising concerns about the shortage and price tracks. Local markets lost fresh produce, water and ice, and destroyed market stalls. Dramatic video approached the social media showing hailstorm pelted down of the Colosseum with some clipped centimeters of the view of meteor in hour. Meteorologists warned that such severe meteor previously rare in Rome could become common in rising sea temperatures, intensify storm in the southern Europe. Rome cleaned ice from the streets and eases the financial damage. The storm has represented the debate about the urban resilience, climate change adaptation, and the Italian capital's preparedness for the increasingly unpredictability of nature. Chaos and disbelief swept through the Italian capital as a ferocious hailstorm tore across Rome, blanketed streets in ice, flooding tunnels and living residents trapped in their cars and homes. The storm which struck suddenly in the late afternoon turned into Eternal City, into the witness described it as a frozen battlefield. Meteorologists said the event was triggered by a clash between the warm Mediterranean air and rapidly advanced Arctic front, a combination that prodded towering thunderstorm and the severe hail. Within moments, hailstorm the size of large coins plumped the city, shredded through windows and dented vehicles across entire neighborhoods. I've lived in Rome, and whole life I never seen anything like it, said 34-year-old Yale taxi driver Marco De Santis. The storm unleashed torrents of the city water through the several districts, including Trastevere, San Giovanni, and Ossa, where drainage system was overwhelmed. Firefighters reported to more than 1,500 emergency calls, rescuing stranded motorists and pumped water from metro station and underground garage. Power cuts hit multiple areas, while traffic across A19 ring road ground to half an hour. Photos and videos shared online showed rivers of ice flowing through the incident cobblestone streets and half-building knee-deep around the famous landmark. The Trevi Foundation overflowed with a ruin of water, while parts of Via del Corso resembled glacier.
Risponde alle segreterie telefonica di 3, 4.
It was like the end of the world, said Marina Ferrara, a local spokesman near the Colosseum. Everything turned white in 5 minutes. The sound was pure terror. Photos and videos circulated on social media showed iconic landmarks like a Trevi Foundation and the Pizza Venezia buried in ice. Hell up to 15 centimeters deep fell in some areas, causing road closures and public transport delays. Several trees were uprooted, debris littered the I-19 ring road and severe traffic jams ensued. Outside inside the capital, neighboring farmland in lesser seaports were agriculture damaged. Vineyard and olive groves were devastated, with the farmers estimated losers in the million of euros. Their crops have completely destroyed it. It is heartbreaking, said Antonio Rizzi, a farmer in Velletri. Environmental experts warn that climate change is making such extreme weather events increasingly frequent. Professor Gianni Volde and Rome University pointed out the Mediterranean is warming faster than the global average. He explained it. They mean storms generate more energy, making heavy rain and large hail from likely. Rome is reeling from the storm fury as an emergency response team clear roads and assess damage. When the eternal city has been reminded is not immune and the intensified extreme weather caused by the climate change. Italy. A sudden massive hailstorm has caused extensive damage across Italy, paralyzing major cities and devastated vast agriculture areas. This extreme weather struck late Monday night, battered region from Lombardy to Tuscany, with the hailstones the size of a golf ball and a wind exceeded 100 km per hour. It left a trail of destruction, flooding and chaos. Residents in Milan, Bologna and Parma reported scenes of panic in the dark storm cloud relating in an eerily sunlight with minutes. It was followed by a different onslaught, hail smashed roofs, shattered car windows and tearing streets and frozen rivers. It sounded like an explosion, said Franza Bianchi, a shop owner in the Milan. The hailstorm hit so hard they bent to mental separate inward. Fire department across northern Italy received over 2,000 emergency calls, reporting to traffic drivers and clearing roads buried under the layer of ice. Powerlines shattered trees and uprooted an entire region, plunged into darkness overnight. Train services were halted in multiple areas, while the Milan Malnesa Airport and Bologna Guglielmo Marconi Airport experienced a delay in cancellation due to heavy hail estimated on runways. Severe storms have struck Italy, Emilia-Romagna region, alleged torrential rain, hail and powerful winds that caused flash flood and power outage and widespread disruption. The violent weather in the late Monday drenched cities including Bologna, Madeira, Ravenna and Forlì, and leaving several communities underwater within an hour. Residents described scenes of chaos, and the streets turned into rivers and vehicles were swept away. The water rose so quickly that we barely had time to measure our car, said Luca Bianchi, a shop owner in central Bologna. It was like a city was drowned. Firefighters carried out more than 800 emergency inverters. Overnight, rescue standard motorists and pumped water from flooded homes. In Ravenna, authority ordered evacuation after local rivers overflowed. Wide sections of the A14 motorway were temporarily closed due to landslides and debris. Meteorologists say the storm was triggered and the sharp drop in air pressure as warm, humid air from the Adriatic collided with a cold front descended from the northern Europe, a risk from intense thunderstorm. According to Italy's Civil Protection Department, the storm was part of the weather system moving across central city, Italy, where warm Mediterranean air collided vitally with a cold front from the northern Europe. It was an explosive mix, said meteorologist Giulia Bianchi. The sudden temperature drop triggered intense convection, prompted hail and unusual size of this time of year. Shops and restaurants interest even accompanied for a safer flood with outdoor treacherous terraces and markets still destroyed it. Several hospitals reported minor minor injuries, mostly from the people slipping or branch stuck in fallen debris. It lasted barely 20 minutes, said cafe owner Eliza Romano, but the damages caused local like hurricane airspace. The storm aftermath left Rome's historic landmarks cratered in ice and a real haunting sights. Tourists shaped photos to Colosseum and Spanish steps gilding the under street slides, and the city crews walked through the night to clear debris and restore normal traffic. Experts warn that extreme weather like this could become more frequent. Mediterranean storms are intensified due to climate change, said climatologist Dr. Lorenzo Conte. Rome may see more violent hail and flash flood in the recent heat. As a calm returned by morning, Romans awoke the melted hail and the city shaking, the yet another reminder to nature growing unpredictability. Several roads were closed and flash floods combined with a thick layer of hail turned into highway into slippery, impossible surface. The damage to agriculture is catastrophic. Vineyard in Veneto and orange in Madeira have suffered total losers, with the farmers estimated damage at over 200 million euros. Years to work destroyed in 20 minutes, said winemaker Matteo Galli. We have never seen such large hailstorm. They punched holes in a metal roof. Meteorologists from Italy National Meteorological Agency explained that the intense collision of most Mediterranean air and cold northern winds created a supercell, a rotting thunderstorm capable of producing giant hailstorm and a sudden gust of winds. The temperature dropped by more than 10 Celsius in less than an hour, shocking residents who were enjoying a midsummer events. Hospitals in several provinces treated dozens of people, took cuts of barriers from the broken glass and ice. Fortunately, no deaths were reported, although local officials warning to such extreme weather events are becoming more common. Italy is becoming increasingly vulnerable to violent weather, say climatologist Dr. Lucia Ferrara. Rising sea temperatures in the Mediterranean are contributing to stronger and faster developing storms. At dawn, residents took to streets and found their streets covered in ice, cars damaged, windows broken and crops destroyed. For many Italians, it was a stark reminder of the growing instability of nature and warning for the storm to come. Meteorologists from the Italian Air Force Meteorological Center attributed the phenomenon of supercell storm. They explained it in a result from the sudden collisions between most air from the Torrential Sea and a cold front air masses moving south from the Central Europe. The constant created the perfect environment for the formation of giant hailstorms, explained senior meteorologist Elena Moretti. Public transportation suffered severe disruption, with the metro line E temporarily suspended due to flooding at multiple stations. Major arterial roads in the city experienced severe traffic congestion, paralyzed urban function. Authority urged residents to avoid non-essential outing, while drainage channels and roads continue to be clear. Experts warn this phenomenon is a part of concerned terrain. Climate analyst Dr. Paolo Rossi stated, these extreme weather events are not longer isolated occurrences, they are increasing in frequency and intensity, representing a direct sign of climate change impacting the Mediterranean basin. Amid the chaos, no fatalities were reported, though the several people sustained minor injuries from the flying debris. As a calm returned, Rome was reminded once again, ever is timeless, beauty cannot escape the growing fury of nature. Rome looked at the Venice of the night, journeyed one use on it. Experts warn that such extreme weather conditions are becoming more frequent. Climate change is intensified storm in Italy, said Professor Marco Bellini, a climatologist at the Sicily University. Farmer seas are feeding more energy in the atmosphere, and we are seeing the consequences of this with our eyes. By morning, cities workers are clearing debris and residents were assessing the damage. Glistered the fence trap in a reminder of sudden power of nature and growing instability of European climate. Meteorologists say the storm dumped over the 8 mm of rain in just 1 hour, nearly half of rain average monthly rainfall. Experts link the event of growing instability of the Mediterranean climate. Falling the water, sea temperatures as this storm are becoming more frequent or more destructive, said Dr. Erin Tufari, a climatologist of the University of Bologna. Video shared online showed massive hailstorm pelting the streets while the residents sheltered the cafes and metro station. In the suburbs, strong winds and the roof from buildings and left thousands without electricity. Major Roberto Giuliani was called to the emergency assessment, warning that the Rome outdated drainage system can no longer handle such tropical-style weather pattern. The storm here reignite debates about the Italy preparedness for the climate extremes. As one resident wrote on social media, Rome is drawing not from the history but from the neglect. A sudden and intense hailstorm swept across Sicily on a Tuesday afternoon, leaving streets submerged, vehicles damaged, and residents scrambling for the shelter. Meteorologists reported that the storm was followed by the warm Mediterranean air colliding with a cold front from the north. Causing heavy rainfall, hailstorms up to gulf both sides, and strong winds had battered to the island. Palermo, Catania and Messina were among the hardest hit cities. Streets quickly flooded and traffic came to standstill, and a heat shattered car windows and dented rooftops. "I've never seen hail like this in my life," said Giuliano Marino, in a local shop owner in Palermo. "The noise was different, and water was rising within minutes." The protest zone, Sicily Civil Protection Authority received hundreds of emergency calls for stranded motorists, fallen trees and damaged properties. Several small rivers in province overflowed, forced temporary evacuation in low-lying neighborhoods. Minor injuries were trapped from slip and hail impact. Agriculture area also suffered significant losses. Authorities report that the wind uprooted trees, damaged roofs, and caused partial power outage in some areas and Veneto region. The city transport network was paralyzed, but buses were suspended and several bridges were temporarily closed due to high water levels. Meteorologists said the storm was fueled the powerful low-pressure system that swept across southern Europe during the most unstable air from the Mediterranean Sea. As a result, more than 120 mm of rainfall in few hours, half of Venice's normal monthly rainfall. Environmental groups have again warned that climate change is exacerbating extreme weather events across Italy. Venice is not a far front to the climate crisis, said meteorologist Luca Moretti. Without district action, this flooding will only get worse. As the storm subsides, the clean begin that the forces are not yet devastation flood severe as a painful reminder of Venice's fragile struggle with the sea. An unexpected violent hailstorm that struck Rome, Italy, transformed the city's historic streets into rivers of ice and a widespread of chaos. The storm, which erupted suddenly on a Monday evening, brought golf ball-sized hailstones along the fiery gates of torrential rain for about 13 minutes. Communities and tourists were completely caught off guard. Social media flooded with shocking videos captured hailstones wildly pelting cars, roofs, and incidents. Couple of stones created scenes more reminiscent of winter blizzard of that October night in the Mediterranean capital. The city center, Corsa, and Piazza Venezia were temporarily blackened in white, with several vehicles seen standing black in thick layer of ice. Emergency service were stretched to the limit, responded to over 500 calls in just 2 hours. There were several minor incidents due to flooded underpasses, road closures, and slippery surface, confirmed Marco De Santi, spokesman for the Rome Fire Department. Dozens of fallen trees were reported, and power outage occurring in parts of Ostia and Montardeve district.